I'm quite excited about today's video. I've got 18 metres of fencing to construct at the bottom of my garden, and with most of my projects I'm doing it for the first time and I'm doing it on my own. Now, there are lots of different types of fencing, like for example these Closeboard fencing panels that you can see here. But with over 18 metres to fence, I decided to go for this traditional Closeboard fencing because it's a really economical way to put up an incredibly sturdy system, and one which on a gradually sloping garden like mine you can seamlessly construct up the hill, in marked contrast to the panel board systems where you have to step them up the slope. A fence that, in short, I'm hoping is going to outlive my time at this house. Now, quick tip before we start: if you can, buy from a local fencing supplier rather than from online. I bought this lot online because I was really impressed with the quality of the system, but I had a few problems with it. Firstly, they sent me the wrong length feather boarding for this longer section here. They wouldn't accept responsibility, so I had to drive down to replace the feather boarding sections myself. Secondly, if you buy locally, you can chat through over the counter everything you need and keep popping back if you need extra stuff. There were a few extra bits that I obviously couldn't get because I'd bought them online. And thirdly, the company I bought from put the post saver sleeves that I will come on to shortly in completely the wrong place on this longer section of post here. Result which I've had to live with is that I've got post saver sleeves much further out of the ground than they should be. None of this would have been a problem if I bought everything from my local fencing supplier. So basically I've got two 9-metre runs. I've got this section here down a bank, so I'm going for longer posts here, and then the fence is going to turn at 90 degrees and head over there to that post in the corner. So I've got a little bit of a game plan which I'll come on to. It involves starting in this corner using the original fence post here as my starting point. And by taking out the original post, I'm 90% there on the first hole I've got to dig. Okay, step one, I'm going to start by marking out the perimeter of the new fence. Putting a few guide posts in. And now with that done, I'm going to stretch a line across the whole lot and then mark that on the ground so I know exactly where my fence posts are going. One of the good things about doing a string line like this before you start is it enables you to work out exactly what your fence posts are meeting at, what angle your fence posts are meeting at. I want this to be 90 degrees, and that is definitely not currently 90 degrees, so I just need to adjust this fence post out a little bit. I thought it'd be a pain having to work around string on the floor while I was digging, so I bought this line marker. And let's see how we go on with it. Now with the line of the first run marked out on the ground with the line marker, I can remove the posts and begin the process of digging the holes for the first posts. The last thing I've done is mark the position of the posts, which are basically spaced at 3-metre intervals to coincide with the length of the Arris rails. So I've got 8 posts, 5 at 2.7 metres and 3 at 2.4 metres. Now, as you can see here, another attraction of these posts was that they were fitted with the post saver system, which is designed to prevent rot at ground level. For bound braces, I decided to use this bituminous paint just to completely seal the posts and prolong their life. Now, as you will have seen so far, there's a slope on part of the area that we're fencing, so I asked for 2.7 metre long posts for this area, and in their wisdom they've gone and put the post saver for those longer posts at completely the wrong point. They've put them at the same point as they have for the shorter 2.4 metre posts, which is a complete pain. I couldn't take them back, and what I ended up having to do, as well as coating the rest of the lower section with the bituminous paint, I ended up buying some more post saver sleeves. I spoke to Post Saver and they were incredibly frustrated that this company had put the post savers in the wrong point because they'd only trained them a few months earlier. But anyway, it's one of these things I'll have to live with, and you'll see the consequences of it later on in the video. So I've done a quick mock-up of the fence as it will be constructed because I wanted to make sure that I set the fence post in exactly the right place in the ground. You see we've got this top rail which the finishing strip will be fixed to like that. Feather boarding goes right up to it obviously. And looking down to the bottom we've got our chunky gravel boards, and then below that, that is the ground level. And if you look at the post savers, there is a dotted line which marks the ideal ground level, which is pretty much in exactly sort of 5-7 mil above actually where I've got that. So I'm going to mark that point by screwing a gravel board to the fence post so that when I put it in the ground I'll have it in exactly the right place. For the time being I've got to excavate my hole 2 foot basically, 600 mil plus a bit of space for the gravel. I'm going to use a bit of sacrificial board I've got left over, which is slightly narrower. Now there's lots of debate as to whether you should put gravel at the bottom of the hole to help with drainage. I've decided, because I don't do this ever, that belt and braces approach is best, so I bought some of this 20mm gravel from my local building merchants. I'm going to shove a bit at the bottom of the hole. Quick point, but something I've been mulling over quite a lot during this video. I put my gravel in the bottom and then plonk the post down on top of it and then concrete on top of that. Probably to assist with the drainage I should have continued to put a bit more gravel around the post before concreting it. That way the post is truly sunk into the gravel rather than surrounded by concrete. The reason why people use gravel is in theory because if a post shrinks, water can get down between the post and the concrete and rot the bottom of the post. But I don't know whether there's anything in that personally. Most of the ground rot happens at ground level where you've got oxygen, and some people say that the problem with gravel is it produces a sponge for all the surrounding water to go into anyway. So anyway, I'll leave you to decide yourselves in the comment section below what your views are on that. But in the meantime, I would say that probably don't need the gravel if we've done what I did, which is coat the bottom of the post in the bituminous paint. And without specialist tools, the first hole itself I've dug out with my demolition bar and a good old-fashioned trowel. Now it's in with the post just to check before I start setting it. Yeah, I'm pleased with this little tool, because the other thing it's going to enable me to do is to make sure that my fence post is nicely parallel to the line when I set it. For the concreting, I'm using this Remix dry mortar, and it sets a little bit slower, gives you a little bit more time to set the post, 10 minutes, and it's a little bit cheaper as a result. Everyone's got a different view on how to set posts in concrete, so I decided to keep things simple by following the instructions on the back of the concrete bag itself. So step 1, half fill the hole with water. That's taken a sort of builder's bucket. So the instructions say you add the post mix obviously uniformly around the post until it's above the level of the water, then add additional water if the dry powder is showing. For me, I think this could create quite a sloppy mix, because when you start prodding the mixture with a stick even after the powder is above the water, you actually realise there's quite a lot of sort of gaps or voids or areas within the water where the concrete hasn't actually gone into. So what I like to do is keep prodding the hole with a stick, adding extra concrete until you've got yourself a really lovely, strong, sturdy mix. I end up using nearly 2 bags in here, and I've made a couple of spikes to put in the ground to hold the post in position while it's setting, but it's already so firm I've been able to adjust the post, get it exactly plumb without actually putting any of the supporting spikes in. Right, for my next post I've got these 2 really amazing old-fashioned looking post diggers that I've borrowed from my father-in-law. Now, there are lots of post diggers on the market, and provided your soil isn't too full of roots and stones and you've got enough fencing to do to justify it, I really recommend buying one of these, because I have found digging the holes so much quicker with my old-fashioned post digger. So I'm going to try this corkscrew first and see how I get on. Right, I've hit something. The answer is not great, so I'm going to have to resort to a good old-fashioned spade. I'm making a bit of more headway now. I had to get my angle grinder out to remove this. So now I've got this tool out, and actually I'm now suddenly getting a bit of depth into my hole, because I was using my trowel and that was getting me nowhere. So I am loving this tool now. Look at this. Take it out, lift the collar, and out it comes. Old tools are always the best, guys, aren't they? I also found my demolition bar to be the perfect companion to the hole digging tool, because every now and again you hit something like a hidden stone or brick or a root that needs to be moved out of the way before you can put the digging tool back in the ground. The other thing I really like about this little piece I put on the bottom is it gives me the ability to just plonk the post into the ground and leave it. And so it's on number 2. Now, getting the right amount of water in the hole is quite important. 3/4 of a black building bucket is more than enough for a hole like this, but I ended up putting in a little bit too much. I think making sure the hole's half full of water with the post in, rather than when the post is out, is more likely to give you the right sort of quantity of water. Right, you see I've put a little buttress on this one just to keep it up exactly plumb whilst it's setting. What I've learnt on this particular one is I put a little bit too much water in initially. Ignore the surface water, I just put a little bit more on top at the end. But because I put too much water in, I ended up having to put too much cement in. I would say fence post number 1 is the perfect amount, because I've got enough. I've got a few inches now, 70 or so mil, to put surface, a bit of topsoil on top of the concrete, whereas on this one I haven't got that much. I can still put a bit of topsoil on, but not as much as I would have liked. But thinking about it, the less topsoil you've got around the post, the less likely it is to rot. Okay, the fence post is shaping up quite nicely. The 2 corner posts are in. This is quite a crucial post, this one, because being the corner posts, they're taking a lot of wind resistance. So I'm really pleased with the solidity of that and the pit that I've dug, and also I'm quite chuffed about this. Looking at spirit level, it's exactly plumb. I decided in the end to buy some new post saver sleeves and apply them at the right point that the fencing company should have done themselves. I didn't do a brilliant job because my pipe burner, I think, has too focused a flame. I will probably be doing another video to talk about the pros and cons of these post savers, but anyway, I managed to get them on and they did the job. Sadly, you can really see the point I was making about the post savers being far too high above the ground. It's day 3, following Saturday. We've had a lot of rain this week, so things are going to get muddy. First job I've got to do is put in these little mini Arris rails, which the fence supplier has designed to sit midway between each 3-metre run to support the gravel boards. So I've got my string out again and I've stretched it between the posts so I can mark where these supports are going. I'm applying a bit of bitumen to my little board posts. Should have done this last night really, but I've had a really busy week and I just couldn't face it. And it was cold and dark and all the rest of it. So I'm going to leave that to soak in for a couple of hours while I dig the rest of the holes. I know it's ridiculously over the top bitumening these, but you know what guys, if we're doing a DIY job like this, why not take it higher than a level that any tradesman would ever go to? That way you know you've done the job properly and you know it's going to last. At this point it's important to get the gravel boards in the right position, so to do that I start from the top with the counter rails. I can then put 2 feather boards in place and work out the exact position of the gravel boards. And I should probably point out at this stage that all the screws you see me using in this video are SiteMate premium decking screws, 4.5 by 75mm or 8 by 3 inch. From that point I can then fix the Arris rail into place and fix the mini Arris rail in position so that it can be concreted. I cut this additional V-shaped notch into my longer 2.7 m posts because I wasn't happy with the gap between the bottom of the Arris rail and the gravel boards. This brought it more into line with the gap that I've got on the 2.4 m posts. Now my new V-notches were cut out after the tannalising process, and I wasn't particularly impressed with how much the tannalising had sunk into the timber, so as a precaution to protect my posts I ended up applying more bituminous paint to the freshly cut notches. With all the bottom Arris rails, supporting pieces and gravel boards in place, it was then a really straightforward quick process getting all the remaining Arris rails screwed to the posts. Now for fences like this, or for fences of any particular length, you really want to think about hiring a nail gun. Using just a normal hammer and nails is going to take you far too long, and all that hammering could end up destabilising the fence post you've just put in. This is the nail gun I borrowed from my friend John. You can hire one of these for anything from £25 a day up to £35 for a week from my local hire shop. What you'll need to get with the nail gun is a pack of nails. You can get packs of 1,000 with a gas canister, which is this, from about £18 plus VAT, which is a pretty good deal considering the canisters themselves in 2 packs can range from anything between £12 and £36. So basically 3 parts of the gun. You've got a battery that you need to charge up that goes in there. Canister, the gas canister slots in the end there, and finally you load your nails like that. Not to say of course you have to use a nail gun, but as you can see from the images here, if you do use a normal hammer and nails you'll find it's a much slower process. Now the other thing you'll see quite a lot of debate about on the internet is where to position the nails in from the edge of the featherboard. Now I found an optimal position when doing my fence of about 30mm in from the edge of the featherboard. We've obviously got a 25mm overlap on the featherboards. Placing the nail 30mm in allows you to drive the nail home without splitting the featherboard. But it also gives you the ability potentially to remove a damaged featherboard should you need to do so to replace it. If you drive the nail in too far away from the edge of the board, and remember you're using a nail gun rather than a hammer like this, the danger is as the nail gun drives the nail home, you end up cracking the featherboard. I'm going to be here for hours if I measure out my 25mm overlap for every single feather edge. So I've got my old circular saw, track saw guide, rail guide here, which is almost exactly the right width to make a perfect jig. It's a little bit too long, so what I'm doing, putting a screw there so I can get it to exactly the right depth. So every now and again I'm checking that the featherboards are still perfectly vertical with my spirit level, just in case one of the featherboards slips on the jig. When you get 4 or 5 boards away from the corner, it's a good idea to check how much space you've got left and adjust the overlap of the feather boards accordingly so that you don't have to cut any feather boards down. Right, in the corner down here, where the ground slopes down, I was just going to fill that with gravel boards, but that's not going to look good when you've gone to this much effort. Might as well do the job properly. So a little bit of a rethink, and I'm going to reconfigure this section of the fence. Now how much better does that look? Gravel board just needs to dry out and blend in. Finishing straight, guys, just putting the capping rails on now. Thought about screwing the top rails on, but actually found this to be the best solution, using some galvanised roof nails. So that's it, everyone. The fence is finally finished. I'm sorry you've had to sit through a marathon over 20-minute video today. I wanted to post everything in one video. I'm not a big fan of drip feeding video projects in sort of bite-sized chunks. So I hope you can manage to sit through the whole thing. I've got to say, this is one of my proudest achievements today. I knew nothing about building fences before I started this. I did quite a lot of research to decide which fencing system I was going to work with, and then all the processes that went into constructing it. And I think I've ended up with a really good solution. I really didn't know that I was going to be able to achieve this. Over a year ago, I struggled to put up the 2 fence panels that you saw at the start of this video, and I had to get my mate John over to help me. This time I managed to do the whole thing on my own. So I think what this shows is there are really no barriers to what you can achieve if you do the research and you put your mind to it and you get the right tools for the job. As ever, details of all the tools and all of the fencing materials and the price of all those things will be in the description at the end of this video, so check that out if you want to know what I did, how I did it, and how much it cost. So thanks again for watching today's video. If you've liked it, please click on the like button below. And finally, if you're new to my channel, as I always say this, I would absolutely love to have you subscribe. You can do that by clicking on the link here. Subscriptions are a very valuable part for me of working out how my channel's going and whether you're actually liking the content that I'm putting out there. So thanks again for all your help and support.